We're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of This Week in Real Estate, hosted by yours truly, a bearded man of real estate. My name's Ray, and we are live with episode 291. What? I'm excited. Starter homes get cheaper, but is anyone actually buying? And if you're looking at our cover art on YouTube, it was pretty cool, actually. It was AI generated. I've been using that for like a year now. But I'm loving the look of it because it says housing on edge, and it's got a house on a cliff. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about REcolorado and their departure with the MLS, or the MLS's departure with the Realtor orgs. NAR's clear cooperations back in the news. The chief legal officer, Katie Johnson, is stepping down. We'll talk about why. There's a law professor that created a contract that meets the interest of buyers' needs, supposedly. We'll be looking at that. And we've got all the latest economic news. Starter homes are cheaper. Buyers may or may not be coming back. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about mortgage rate expectations because they have shifted. And just 2.5% of U.S. homes have changed hands this year. So check on your local realtor friend and see how they're doing. We are broadcasting live everywhere on YouTube, Facebook. And if you comment, I can display your comment. But what's weird now is I can't display comments that happened before the show. So congrats to Matt Lamar. She was first this week. I'm glad you're back on top, buddy. But for whatever reason, I don't see... Maybe somebody could comment on YouTube. Drop another comment on there to see if I even see it. Because right now it doesn't show. So it might be a StreamYard issue. It might not be. But hopefully we can see comments today. If not, I'll have to bring up the show in another window. We're also broadcasting live on Instagram. So if you're over there, you could comment and I will read your Instagram username. Stephen Johnston checking in. He says hi on YouTube. So yeah, I can see it. That's strange. Usually I could see all the older, before we go live, there's a lively debate in the comments section on YouTube. And I can usually pull up those comments and display them, but I can't. So Olivier's there. He said, so you missed the banter. Yeah. I mean, I saw it. I was participating in just reading it and laughing about it. But now I can't display it for everyone else to enjoy. Well, we've got a lot of news to cover. So I kind of want to jump right in. Oh, I should also mention we're broadcasting on Clubhouse too. So if you want to add your voice to the podcast, one of the coolest things to do is go search for the Real Estate Networking Club or the Real Estate Network. Are they called houses now? Real Estate Networking House? Whatever. Just find Real Estate Networking Group or Real Estate Networking House, and we are broadcasting live in that group. That's the largest group of real estate related interest in the entire world in a audio platform. So Armando's there. What's up, Armando? So that's where it is. If you are listening on Clubhouse and not yet a member of that group, I want you to go up to the top and click that and be sure that you join. All right, so let's talk about REcolorado. We've covered this story several times. We've been talking about how there was a big hubbub when they first announced that REcolorado would be selling. From the two MLSs or the two realtor orgs that had interest in it. They sold to Joseph Burks. So Joseph Burks is the main purchaser. And he says that they're committed to ensuring that REcolorado not only remains the foundation of Colorado's real estate community, but it continues to set the standard for excellence and innovation as a subscriber-focused MLS. Burks said in a statement, our goal is to collaborate closely with its exceptional team and strengthen the company even further, ensuring it continues to deliver MLS services that bring unparalleled value to its subscribers and their clients, adapting and innovating to meet the evolving needs of real estate professionals. I mean, ChatGPT 4.0 couldn't have written a better puff piece on return. He's saying what he should be saying. The biggest piece of this news, though, is that they are now detached from DMAR and SMDRA, which is interesting. The acquisition represents a pivotal moment in our mission to deliver exceptional value to real estate professionals across Colorado, Interim CEO Larry McGee said in a statement. Under the new leadership, REcolorado remains steadfast in his 40-year tradition, unwavering dedication to subscribers while expanding our service capabilities. I wonder if they're going to All right. So first, do we have anyone from Colorado that's either in the comments or on the audio version? Because I would love to get your opinion on a couple of things. I want to know, one of my biggest questions is, was it previously open to non-members? Like people that were not members of the board? If you were not a Realtor, did you have access to the MLS, or could you get access to the MLS? Because I think that's one of the biggest potential changes that REcolorado could make now that it is not part of the board, is that now they could open up membership to people that are just real estate agents that are not necessarily Realtors. That would be a huge question for me. I mean, I think that's an avenue where they can make more money. If you're looking at it from the business aspect, they can make more money there. But then what would happen to the board? Why would people be a member of their local board? Maybe the local board is providing contracts like they are here. So that would be the biggest benefit to being a continued member of the board, is that our board provides contracts, but the other biggest thing they provide is the MLS. So if our MLS detached from the board here locally, I think you would see a lot of people leave the board, and then they would just get contracts from an attorney that they could reuse. Carmel, I'm going to butcher your name. Let's see. It's Carmel Onuccio, maybe? Onuccio. He joined us over on Instagram, said, I love the vibe. I'm a local agent, West Orlando. What's up, man? Thanks for joining. All right. There's more of this on Inman. You can read it. We've been covering this several times. And I would say almost ad nauseum. One of the things I noticed about this Inman post, though, is the clip art at the top. This is a departure from what they used to do. They used to kind of integrate the headshots of the individuals they were talking about, and they would have like a blue haze over the image and made it look like old paper, and then they might have a couple of buildings in the back, and then have him over here on the left featured, and the other two heads there as well. And this is interesting. This is thrown together in 4 minutes. Maybe not. Maybe it's a art genius that I'm not aware of, but this is basically just a AI cutout of their headshot with shadow added and then put over a city skyscrape that then has a opaque crumpled paper texture over it. So interesting choice. I didn't think much of it until I went to the next story on Inman, which is this. So if you're an audio listener, you have several. Oh, wow. Look, they even put it at the bottom. They said, from the left, CEO Jeremy Waxman and Redfin CEO, Zillow CEO Jeremy Waxman and Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman. Then in the middle is a Realtor symbol. And on the right is Robert Refkin. And then the agency CEO Mauricio Umansky is over in the far right. Now, what's interesting about this is they're guys on the beach playing tug of war, and they just kind of sloppily cut out the heads of these CEOs and put them on top. And so, yeah, and it's got that same crumpled paper texture over the background image. So I don't know what's going on over at the Inman art department, but they're making some interesting choices lately, and I am here for it. I actually like this better than what they used to do. It's more fun. So NER faces a standoff over clear cooperation, Inman survey reveals. We talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. And this is the results of their survey. So the rule, for those of you who don't know, known as clear cooperation, was first enacted in 2020. 4 years later, the industry has launched an all-out battle over the future of the policy. It's under scrutiny from the DOJ and more. Inman asked readers last week to weigh in on what they thought about the policy and whether it should be kept in place, tweaked or repealed. The outlet received nearly 8 dozen responses. 8 dozen, 8 times 8. So 8 dozen responses from agents and brokers who had a lot to say. On the whole, more readers said that NER should repeal the policy, calling it anti-competitive and difficult to enforce and ineffective. 66 respondents took clear side in favor of keeping it. wait, hang on. 66 respondents took a clear side in favor of keeping or repealing the CCP. Oh, okay. I see what this is. Keeping or repealing it. Oh, that's funny that it's called the CCP, isn't it? Eureka, what's up? Eureka said, we need to subscribe separately in the Silicon Valley, MLS, and local board. See, that's what I want to do here. Why, Eureka? Thanks for joining us on YouTube. Why would you continue to be a member of Realtor? What does your board offer since they don't offer just the MLS? I'm just curious. All right, the answers show why clear cooperation is just the latest in a major policy debate. Are all those in favor of repeal? Readers were split about who would benefit most if clear cooperation was repealed. Some said that big brokerages were already at an advantage over the small independent ones. Others said that big brokerages would benefit if it was repealed. So the workarounds in place by large brokerages put the small brokerage firms at a distinct disadvantage. This is the least logical rule I think I've ever seen. Yeah, that's one of people that are saying that it benefits some brokerages over another. The clear cooperation policy says basically, if you list a property, you have to put it into the MLS right away, right? Within 24 hours. And then it has to be, any property you have listed has to be listed in the MLS. And clear cooperation has a workaround in the rule that allows someone to list the property and not put it in the MLS if they advertise only to those within their own brokerage or their own database. So they can't advertise it publicly, but they could put it in they could put it out to their database and they could put it out to their own brokerage. Once they go outside of their brokerage, then the clear cooperation policy would be enforceable. So I don't really think that it gives a specific brokerage an advantage if they repeal it. And I don't think because there's that workaround, I don't think it makes a difference at all. I think if they didn't have it in place and allowed people to publicly market properties that were coming soon, long before they were listed on the MLS, then I think that would have a huge advantage for everyone in the marketplace, because now I know those properties that my Compass friend has and he can tell me about them. Whereas right now he really can't. I guess maybe if I'm in his database. So it's a little confusing on that. Some clients want their property to be marketed privately for many reasons. The reader wrote, workarounds that big brokerages used to get around clear cooperation are not possible for small brokerages and sole proprietors. Yeah, that would be true. So that's one way that clear cooperation has hurt small brokerages and sole proprietors. Many of those who were in favor of repeal were unaware that clear cooperation allows sellers who don't want their listings to be publicly marketed on the MLS or portal like Zillow to waive the requirement. Let's see. All right, then it goes to the opposed side. On the other hand, agents can't agree whether maybe I'm just not going to say it right all day. On the other hand, many agents can clear cooperation is in the best interest of seller clients. Those in favor of repealing the policy said some clients might prefer less exposure for the listing, while others said the policy helped lead to higher sales prices. From a client's perspective, clear cooperation is a no-brainer, maximum exposure on the MLS. Off-market sales don't often offer the same property visibility. Yeah, maybe not. There is this fair housing concern. This is a good point. As an African-American broker over 40 years, I've seen and experienced the struggle with fair housing. Removing this just opens it back up to return to the old ways. I mean, maybe with the workarounds in clear cooperation, I think that they could. I think there's enough ways in place for people to discriminate if they wanted to, or be prejudiced if they wanted to. So I don't know that there would be that much of a difference, to be honest. But basically saying that whatever's listed there, everyone should have access to. I would agree with that. I think I said this last week too. My point is if someone wants to keep their property off the market, I think they should sign something saying that they understand what they're doing. There was a document produced, I think it was in Alabama, just before all the clear cooperation stuff happened. And everyone was saying, oh, you should use this document from Alabama. And basically it said that if you keep your property off the market, and this is when the DOJ was investigating and such, and this contract said, if you keep your property off the market, then you run the risk of not getting the exposure, and you run the risk of this, and you run the risk of that. And it was so poorly written that I had clients that were like, well, I don't want to even do coming soon if this is the case. I'm like, no. What they're saying is, if you keep it completely off the market, you are less likely to get additional exposure, which that is true. So, but it was written in such a way that didn't really highlight the benefits of a coming soon listing. And you might be listening, wondering, what is the benefit of a coming soon listing, Ray? And I'm glad you asked. A coming soon listing, you have buyers like this weekend looking for property. And maybe I have a seller that is 2 weeks away from listing their property because of timing, or maybe they're out of town and they have to come back and clean up the house, or, you know, maybe they're just super busy and they got kids at camp and they can't get everything done that they need to. So 2 weeks from now, the property will be listed and it's a great house. Is it in my seller's best interest for me to leak the information to current buyers and say, hey, we have this property that's coming soon, and man, you really got to see it? Is that in my client's best interest? Absolutely. Is it in my client's best interest to take the offer before going live? That's for my client to decide. That's where I have to take a step back as a real estate agent and say, well, it depends on what my client wants. If they never want to list the property publicly and they think, well, this is good enough for us, it allows us to make the move we want to make, and I think this is a great deal because it cuts everything short, it's on our terms, then okay. But if they want to test the market, not take an offer, then they can also do that. They have that ability. So I think, without mentioning the benefits, if you only have a document that mentions everything that could go wrong with it, I think the document itself is too one-sided. So let's see.
Can I say something, Ray?
Yeah, let me get to a couple of comments real quick. Jay Marks, what's up, Jay? He's tuning in from the Facebook. He says, love your content. I can't see your link. I can't click on your link, but he said, Jay says, my MLS requires no board membership. That's weird. I think I just had a flood of comments come in. Let me see. Oh, wow. It was a problem with StreamYard. If I go up to the top, now I see that Matt LaMarche was first, and he said dogs back on top. I think the dogs are not back on top, technically. I think the dogs had a pretty brutal loss last week, if I remember correct. But yes, I do now see all of those comments. That's weird. Eureka says, my manager says you should not leave NAR so that you're covered under the parts of the lawsuit that they have settled. I mean, it's settled now, so can't I leave them? There'll be different philosophies coming on coming soon. Eureka says we tend to not use coming soon status. Yeah, I can't really use coming soon status right now. All right, go ahead, Jack. Thanks for joining the show, buddy. Jack joining in from over in Clubhouse. What's up, man?
Oh, sorry about that. I thought Armando was next, but I'll jump in.
Oh, was it Armando? I'm sorry. I thought that was. I just out of the corner of my eye, I see the little thing light up. But yeah, I'll go with you, Jack, and then Armando.
Awesome. We have so MLS PIN does not require NAR membership. MAR, Mass Association of Realtors, requires a membership to NAR so that we can access forms. And if we sign up a listing, I said this last week, if we sign up a listing, it needs to go into the multiple listing service or MLS PIN within 24 hours, unless the consumer, the seller, signs a non-MLS disclosure, which happens pretty much every time. And it is pretty one-sided in the drawbacks of you're not going to get the exposure that could bring you more clients. So I don't know how that I don't know how people would do business without it. So that was it.
Yeah, ours, that document from Alabama that I think everyone was circulating, that someone in our, I don't know if it was our ARA, the Realtor Association that created, or whoever, but they basically just copied some narrow, in my opinion, narrow-minded stats from an economist that was saying if you sell your property off market, it sells for less. And it's like, okay, well, what about pre-marketing it for 2 weeks before going live? Like, where's that stat? Where's that information? So I wouldn't mind that, Jack, but I do think the one-sidedness of a document like that is kind of weird.
And if you
Armand,
give me if you give me a minute, I'll go out and poll 7 people from the street corner.
yeah, do it, do it. I want a man on the street report, Jack. Thanks.
I'm looking for Suffolk polls. I'm not looking for 8 dozen. We asked 8 dozen random people. Those people showed up at my open house today.
That's true. Terrence Clark chimes in on YouTube and says there are too many things that they've not defined, but expect people to share perspective, as in quote public marketing. Yeah, that's a good point, Terrence. All right, what's up, Armando? How you doing, man?
What kind of show is it?
Man, I was about to hit the button and then you just said it. That's amazing.
Do it. Right.
What's up, dude? I haven't heard from you in a while.
Good, good. Just trying to hold it down here in Houston, Texas. Kind of getting back online from the storms from
Yeah.
about 3 months ago. We had 4 back to back almost down here, and praying for the ones in North Carolina. So,
Yeah.
but
That's been bad
what I
out there.
wanted to say, as far as the off market and all that, I mean, there's something to be said about sellers, and because I work with enough of them, is their main concern is people wasting their time coming through their home, looky loos, and people. A lot of agents, they'll schedule, they won't show, no shows, and a lot of these sellers have families with children, and dogs, and you have kenneling and all that. And so, there is a document that we have, the HER 300, which, explicitly shows everything, why, it's not good to keep it off. But I use it because, once I sign it up, I can't list it tomorrow. Like, we have photos, and usually the house needs to be decluttered. So I just give a general 45 days. Not that we take 45 days to list, but just in case something happens, life happens, we need to stretch it
Yeah.
out. So I'm covered, and then in between that time of photo time, my brokerage, just like yours, is huge. So we have off market lists we can do, and we can market it to my peoples and my book of business, and and they understand with that disclosure that it may not get the best offer, but if it's something that they want to take to trade, the hassle of showings and days on market, and they're trading price for speed and convenience, tell them no. And if
Yeah.
that's what they want to get them from city A to B, yeah, I mean that's what they're, definitely not have to hassle with, hauling the children in and out, and the kids and the dogs, and keeping the house clean. So there's something said to be that. And as far as the discrimination is concerned, a lot of my sellers, we go over fair housing on my listing contract, and they say, we don't discriminate. We want the highest offer or the best terms, and that's it. We don't see discrimination. So in my areas, and I work in a lot of different, Houston's so big, we have a lot of different cultures in the city. When I attended university, I had over 40 different cultures on it. So diversity is huge here, and not one seller, hinted of the fact that they were going to discriminate. And we're like the 4th largest city in the nation.
Yeah.
So as that's concerned, all sellers want are the best terms and the best price, from what my experiences are. So, so we're just left with the seller's concerns about the showings, and of course the exposure part. And I would really hone in on the sellers, trading the time and convenience for price. and see if it's whatever is worth it in their position. That's all I wanted to say on that.
I can see that. On a note on the a note on the fair housing thing, at the risk of triggering fair housing complaint, let me just give an example, and I'll just not mention nationality. I had a buyer client one time that did not choose to work with me because they chose to work with an agent that was their same nationality, because they knew where all the nationality lived that they wanted to be near. And I think that's more along the lines of a risk in a clear cooperation type of thing, where you could have people sharing information among real estate agents or brokerages that share their nationality so that they can have all the people of their type living in a neighborhood or area. And it's super common for people to want to live by someone else who's like them. That's fine, but it's not possible for a realtor who's done the code of ethics and is following fair housing to then steer clients to those areas. And so I think that's more or less the risk. And you could say, well, an all white group, an all Asian group, an all black group, it doesn't really matter what the race, creed, color, protected class is. It's more about providing avenues or dismantling avenues for that to happen. And if you get rid of clear cooperation, it does have to be something that I think is talked about. You have to at least put it out there and say, okay, well, now that we don't have this clear cooperation where every property is going on the market, and you could have potential of a real estate agent holding back a listing from public, from being listed in the public arena, and maybe the seller knows, maybe the seller doesn't know, but in that interim period before they go live, they are publicly marketing it to their kind, quote unquote, whether it's real estate agents or people that are just maybe in the database in the public. So I think that's where the line could easily be crossed and would be hard to police without the clear cooperation policy. I kind of, in my opinion, I feel like that's the only valid complaint. My complaint was with clear cooperation and allowing brokerages to market within themselves. You've not done clear cooperation. Like you are allowing brokerages to try to double in deals within their own group. And that is a big problem because the exclusionary practices. I mean, you could have a brokerage that is all of one nationality, and that's what they're trying to do. So,
violating fair housing might not be the intent, but it might be the outcome.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more possible to violate fair housing without clear cooperation than it is with. However, it's at a disadvantage to a majority of potential sellers and buyers. Buyers want to know about all the available properties before making a decision where they live. And right now they can't know. And so I think it's to a disadvantage of a majority to protect the minority. So I think they're going to have to figure out something to address that concern.
And we're coming off a market that clearly benefited from your house being listed on the multiple listing service to transferring more over or closer to a buyer's market, like your caption on YouTube shows, your little snippet, where this could become more prevalent, and the end result for the industry is that buyers are less loyal.
Yeah, it could be.
It's very cyclical. After doing this for 38 years, you see the same thing over and over again, and now there's just more scrutiny. Again, it might not be the intent, but that doesn't cover you if that's the end result.
Yeah. And it also, you could also make the argument the other way too. Like, do you want someone that has, let's say you're in a situation where the buyer can't pay the buyer agent fee and they want to know about all available properties without clear cooperation. I could tell my real estate agent friends, hey, I've got this property coming up. I could post it on Facebook. I could put it in the for sale by, Facebook marketing groups. I could post it everywhere, and that person can find out about that property. But if they can't afford to pay their real estate agent, then they're just going to be waiting on it to hit the MLS when I can actually market it publicly. So if they want to know about all available properties, it could be hindering them from finding that out. And we know, just statistically, there's a lot of people that are disenfranchised who can't afford that buyer agent fee that may say, well, I got to go try to buy a house without a real estate agent because of that. So I don't know. There's a lot to it now. I think especially more. Terrence Clark makes a really good point though on YouTube. He said policy does not create ethics. If a person is unethical, they're going to be unethical. They're going to be unethical, policy or not, which I agree. He said there's an absolute absence of what exclusivity can do positively affect price. Someone who doesn't want to compete may take an amazing offer because they want to secure an opportunity. That's true. They may, and also I guess you're saying somebody that's off market, you have a buyer that doesn't want to compete. So they make a crazy great offer to keep that property from going on market because they're worried about what could happen. I think that is possible. Well, Armando, thanks for joining us.
What kind of show is this?
I appreciate you chiming in today. That's one of my favorite clips still. All right, let's get to the next article. NAR Chief Legal Officer, Katie Johnson, is stepping down. After all this, I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about her. I like BAM's article because they go right into addressing rumors. They're like, okay, we're addressing the rumors right up at the top. Johnson's unexpected departure sparked speculation about whether she was fired, but NAR was quick to address the rumors. According to Inman, NAR spokesperson confirmed that the claims were false in an emailed statement. So she's stepping down as chief legal officer after 17 years, having joined NAR in 2007. That's when I got my license. Wow. Spent a bulk of her career committing to fulfilling NAR's mission to make homeownership a reality for all Americans. We're grateful for her service, despite being legal counsel and losing one of the biggest lawsuits of all time. They didn't say that last part. I added that last part. So, I mean, she seemed nice, but man, NAR went through it with her. They had like let me see. I can't remember which article had it, but it basically broke down the problems that happened. They also have their total compensation, which is interesting. She started the compensation they have in 2014, $375,000. In 2022, she makes $1,021, $1,021,468. I would argue that in 2022, with all the legal stuff that she had to deal with, that probably is not enough. But I guess if you pay on success rate, maybe it was too much. Well, I guess we'll get the next 2 years. When do we have? Why does it only have till 2022? Is that the latest information we have from NAR? Why don't we have other information? What's up, Glenda? What's up, John Silva?
She's starting a pay for service real attorney model, isn't she? Isn't that what I read?
Is she? Is she really? Because that would be hilarious.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. That was too easy, though.
That would be poetic. What would be really interesting is if she became lead counsel against it. I guess they can't do that, but because she just knows too much. Yeah, like she joins the Catchmark firm. Okay, so I can't find it again, but somebody had a breakdown of everything she went through recently, and all the decisions and all that jazz. It was really interesting to see, just starting, with the DOJ and all that kind of stuff that happened. But now I don't see the article that highlights it. So sorry, I must not have saved it. But it was just lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. They also went through, during all those lawsuits, they also went through the sexual harassment cases with the CEO stepping down, and then they had an interim CEO that came in, and then he went out, and then they had another. Well, I guess he was the actual CEO. And then he went out due to the sexual harassment stuff. And then they had a interim CEO come in, and then she went out real quick. And people are still speculating on why. To now they have named the interim CEO. So she's been through the ringer. I feel bad for her because she's been through the ringer and had the large. I mean, that's such a huge loss on record there. But I guess attorneys don't consider settlements losses. But I mean, come on, it feels like it. All right, so let's go to wait. Let me see if I get any comments. Okay, no. Law professor creates a contract with buyer interest in mind. So this is Tanya Monastir, University of Buffalo law professor. She's one of the ones that came out and criticized the new transaction forms released by the National Association of Realtors. Glinda Baker on Instagram says, that's Glinda with 2 N's. If you don't know her, go follow her. She says, can you imagine what her resume would say? Yeah. Okay. Law professor who's criticized new transaction forms created the National Association of Realtors proposed a settlement of multiple antitrust suits and has released her own sample buyer representation agreement in the hopes of pushing real estate industry to create forms that are fairer to buyers. I read through the form. I'm not an attorney, but I'll show you guys what the sample contract looks like. It's pretty, how do I say it kindly? It's pretty elementary in the pieces that in the terms and everything it lists and suggests. It's very, there's a lot of protections in here for the buyer. There's some that are missing, in my opinion, and there's a lot of protections missing for the real estate agent. So, I mean, it's got the parties at the top. That's fine. And then it has B, and it's language like this that's just, if it feels off. Buyer would like to purchase property in or around, and then I guess you put a geographic location in accordance with the following criteria. And there's just an empty space and there's no blank. And as a real estate agent, we can fill in the blank, but there's not even a blank. It's just off. But the buyer would like to purchase property in or around. That doesn't tell me as an agent what my duty is. That just says this is what the buyer's looking for. And maybe they're using a different part of the contract to define the duty. I don't know. If it protects Matt LaMarche over on Instagram, what's up, Matt? Over on Instagram, says if it protects the buyer, the seller, or the agents are jacked. If it protects the buyer, the seller, or the agents are jacked. What? What are you even saying? Put down the margarita, Matt.
How did you know? No, you can't protect all these parties. Like everyone tries to protect one or the other, but never both. And, you know, in all of contract law, you don't think all these attorneys have gone, look, there's only so far we can go with these buyer protections. There's only so far we can protect the seller. There's got to be, it's a mutually beneficial business relationship. Like that's what we're all trying to do here. So you're just not going to do this. Good try though.
I mean, she's got some good things in here. Buyer would like to purchase a property in or around blank in accordance with the following criteria. I just think that language just needs to be stepped up a little bit. Like
it's definitely bad language. I mean, it's like me saying that putting an offer in on a property and saying I'd like to close on or around November 1st.
Yeah, that doesn't.
That's not enforceable.
That's
right?
not. Yeah. You have to have a solid date there.
Not only that, have you ever had a buyer go outside of an area that they said that they wanted to be in? Like, now what are you supposed to do? Hello?
Do I change this? How many times do I have to edit this agreement for in or around this, in or around that? I mean, I use the phrase, if we're dealing with a regular, somebody searching for a residential home, we use the phrase residential property in Central Arkansas. It's super easy. And Central Arkansas covers a wide area that we serve. If it's investment, then we say investment. If it's commercial, we say commercial. So, And then they want the criteria too. So let's say they're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. Is it incumbent on me? Let's say they put that in the criteria, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, 2,000 to 3,500 square feet. Do I have to look outside of that criteria? Because right now, I try to find my clients the best possible home. And sometimes I find a 2-bedroom home with an additional space that works for my buyer, that if I was searching a 3-bed, 2-bath criteria only, I wouldn't have even seen it, wouldn't have even shown up on the search. And that's not usually, I won't send those to my clients, but do I have to, am I obligated to search that? No. By this contract, I'm not obligated to search anything that falls outside of their criteria. So your average agent can say, well, according to the contract, I did a great job for them. I don't know. I don't think she knows what she's saying. She obviously she's smart. She's a professor of law. She knows what she's saying, but maybe she doesn't understand the practical implication from a real estate agent who's working for this buyer that wants to present this as their contract. I'll say it like that. Length of agreement. I think this is a good idea. This agreement begins on the date as signed and ends on. Okay, no longer than 90 days. Why is that there? What if they want longer than 90 days? Some of my clients will sign a contract for a year because we pick up multiple properties for them all year round. And this would be annoying if it ends here. Now, what I did like is if the buyer signs a contract to purchase the property during this time, this agreement will automatically extend until the transaction closes. That's nice because you don't have to like re-sign something. But I wish there was like I thought it was a good idea to have that part on there, but I do not like the no longer than 90 days. Why would you restrict the language in the contract when you have a blank right here that they could clearly fill in and the buyer can do what they want? So that's another part of this agreement. Like it has suggestions within the contract that I may or may not agree with. The buyer may not agree with either. Matt Lamar says to unburden what has been. Hillary, she says, and you look outside the buyer's perimeters on the MLS because agents will put in incorrect information all the time. True. 100%. All right, this next section, buyer agrees to exclusive relationship. Buyer agrees to work exclusively with broker to purchase the property described in this agreement. Buyer has not signed agreements with any other broker concerning this property. Wait, this property? So can they sign a 3-bedroom, 2-bath criteria up here with me and a 2-bedroom, 1-bath criteria with a different agent? What's this property? What is this property? So unclear language. Also unclear what an exclusive relationship means. It does not say that they won't sign another exclusive relationship with someone else, but it says they have not signed an agreement. So if that language is missing from the next contract, I guess they could. I don't know. Buyer or broker may cancel this agreement. Buyer or broker may cancel this agreement anytime unless the buyer has signed a contract to purchase the property. The party wishing to cancel must let the other party know of the cancellation in writing. I mean, I think you should have the option for a cancellation. And if there's got to be some kind of consideration, I think, but maybe not. Oftentimes we won't charge a cancellation, but if the person's just willy-nilly and maybe we found them a house and now they want to cancel our agreement and go buy that without us, like how do we make sure that they're not going to do that? I show them the house. Let's say we have this signed. I show them the house. They did not sign a contract to purchase the property. The buyer, the seller on the other side of the house is like, hey, you fire your agent, I'll fire mine, and we'll get a better deal. Meanwhile, that seller's trying to cover up some stuff that I would find as professional. My client may not. The party wishing to cancel just has to send me something in writing, say they cancel, and then they can go buy the house. Is
there a protection period further in, like we have in all our contracts?
Yeah, that's
180 days. Yeah.
So section 2 is buyer agreement to pay broker. It's got the commission percentage breakdown. I think it's interesting that 3% is the top commission percentage breakdown. but it shows them that 3% of $400,000 home is 12. They could do 4% as well. I mean, it depends on what you're paying for. I've had clients that want white glove concierge service. They don't want to lift a finger, and they get charged a little bit more than average for all the extra stuff we do for them. And that's fine for them. That's what they want. That's great. I mean, heck, we got a moving truck. Buyer agrees to pay broker either percent of the purchase price or a flat fee. Buyer may owe commission after the contract expires or is canceled. So this is interesting. This is part B. If this agreement expires or is canceled, broker will provide buyer with a list of properties which the broker provided brokerage services. What broker may put on the list? Broker will only put properties on the list where the broker's services were more than minimal. What does that mean? For example, the broker will not put on a property on the list if the broker's only service was locating and presenting the listing to the buyer to consider. What? If I find a house for someone and I've presented it to them for them to consider, they can then cancel the agreement with me and go buy that house without me and not owe anything? Nah. What am I doing? Working for free? When a broker must provide the list, broker will provide this list to the buyer within 3 days. So I think this is interesting. If the buyer enters into an agreement to purchase one of these properties within 90 days, no longer than 90 days, it says, if this agreement is expiring or being canceled, the buyer will pay the broker agreed upon commission. So what is minimal service? Showing the property, is that minimal service? What if they go with one of my showing assistants? So there's some real problems here. Buyer owes commission only upon closing. Okay, that's fine. Buyer will not receive additional compensation. So the broker will not receive additional compensation from any other source that extends the amount specified on the agreement. Broker will not modify this agreement to increase the broker's compensation or sign a superseding agreement with the buyer for a higher amount of commission. So the part I don't agree with this is this last part. It says, or sign a superseding agreement with the buyer for a higher compensation. So if I'm in a situation in which the buyer does want to give me additional compensation for something that I've done, they cannot if they sign this agreement. And I mean, I've been in the business a long time. I've had people tip me. I jokingly tell people, you could always tip me. But I've had a couple of clients give me some extra money at closing because of the money we saved them, or because of how we negotiated on their behalf. Or sometimes they'll say, hey, this is what I want you to negotiate. Go get it for me and you'll get the leftovers. And, it's kind of an informal arrangement. So it just kind of depends on what the client wants to do. Seller or seller's broker may contribute to broker's compensation. So this is kind of where we get into the recent agreement or the recent settlement. A seller or seller's broker may offer to cover the cost of the broker's commission in whole or in part. We always say partial or complete payment. Seller's contribution less the commission. If the seller or seller's broker contribution is less than the commission the buyer has agreed to pay, the buyer will owe the broker the difference. All right. Seller contribution is more. If the seller or seller's broker contribution is more than the amount the buyer agreed to pay the broker will negotiate for the buyer to receive the excess. Well, I can negotiate that, but may or may not get it. I think they're just saying like maybe more spelled out. They don't want the broker negotiating on the broker's own behalf to receive the access. I think that's understandable. Buyer may request concessions to help pay broker's commission. So I thought this was interesting. It says if the seller or seller's broker does not offer to compensate buyer's broker, buyer may ask seller for concession. What about the people that represent them? There's a couple of times in here where it says the buyer can do something, and it literally allows the buyer to go around their agent. If the seller or seller's broker, I'm done here. If the seller or seller's broker does not offer to compensate the buyer's broker, the buyer may ask seller for a concession in an offer to purchase property. That does not say through their agent. Buyer may use a concession for allowable purpose, including to compensate the buyer's broker. I mean, I feel like the buyer, through their broker, should ask the seller for concessions. But, unclear language can be cleared up.
I'm surprised that a law professor has presented this so sloppily when there would be actually something to talk about if it wasn't so poorly written.
Yeah. I mean, I think someone that has been in the real estate industry a long time could probably sit down and pen a better agreement. But coming from just a legal standpoint of contract law and not fully understanding how real estate transactions work practically and what we do for clients and what the clients do for us and how communication goes back and forth and when communication breaks down and why, I think it's hard for them to have a complete understanding of how all that goes down and then write an agreement that puts guardrails on all that. Eureka said our California contracts are now limited to 90 days. Oh, really? Interesting. Does it have any future renewals? How do you deal with investor clients that want to buy with you for the year? Hillary, back when she commented, when you look outside the buyer's perimeters on the MLS because that's incorrect information. And then she said, or if you have a septic and can only have a 2-bedroom house and that's really a 4 bedrooms. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff in this agreement that is not, well, maybe it is covered. Let's look at this. Broker has a duty of professionalism. It says deal honestly and fairly. With whom? It says broker will use professional knowledge, judgment, and skill to assist buyers aspect of the home process. For example, broker will deal honestly and fairly. All right. So this may sound controversial, but if I'm representing the buyer, with that buyer, I will always deal honestly and fairly. With the seller or other agent, I will always deal honestly. I do not have to deal fairly because I am out to protect my buyer. And I am trying to look out for my buyer's best interest and get my buyer what they want. Maybe it's a home fast. Maybe it's the best possible price for the home. Whatever it is, I do not have to be fair to the seller or other broker. I only have to be honest. Account for all funds. That's weird. They should have something a little more specific. Use skill, care, and diligence in the transaction. Define it. What is diligence? What diligence do I have to do? And does that mean that if there's something about the property that I don't know or didn't have a way of knowing, that now the buyer can sue me because they could say, well, you weren't diligent. Our contract says you have to be diligent. What is diligent? Disclose all known facts. Well, if I know the facts, known by who? I can disclose all the facts I know, but I don't know everything the seller knows. And I may not know everything the neighbor knows. Disclose all known facts that are materially affect the value of the property and present all offers and counter offers in a timely manner. Okay, time is of the essence, I could have said. But disclose all known facts. That's funny. Known by who? Broker will show buyer all relevant properties. It says broker will show buyer all properties that fit the buyer's criteria, regardless of whether the seller or seller's broker is offering to compensate the broker. I think this is interesting because there's a lot of agents that would have problems with this language. This is how we currently operate, so it's not a big deal for us. We don't even call and ask the other agents, hey, what are you paying for buyer agent compensation? We do not do that before we go show a property. It does not matter what they're paying. All we have is what our client is paying us and how much of that fee that they want us to ask the seller for, if they even like the property enough to make an offer. So we don't even have that conversation ahead of time. But this says basically the same thing. The broker will show the properties regardless of if they are offering to compensate the broker or not. I think it's a good practice. I like that part. But all properties that fit the buyer's criteria, well, let's go up to the criteria blank and see how long it is. I mean, this is where I would say see attached. And this segment, so that I don't get sued as a real estate agent for trying to do my best to work with this client, but so I don't get sued, I'm going to make that criteria section as narrow as possible, because all properties that fit the buyer's criteria, does that include properties that are off market? It just says all properties. It doesn't say all properties listed in the MLS. It doesn't say all properties on the market. So what does all properties mean? So if you're a real estate agent entering into an agreement like this, you have a huge exposure, because if they find out that their friend found a property off market and they weren't shown that property, guess who's in trouble? You. If their friend buys a house that they would have loved, or if they find out a home sold that they would have loved and the home was listed publicly and you missed it as a real estate agent, it says all properties. So now they can sue you. So, I mean, it just kind of opens the real estate agent wide for lawsuits. Broker represents other potential buyers. Broker represents other potential buyers who may be interested in the same property. Broker will not share buyers' confidential information, including terms of the buyer's offers, with these other buyers. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. Broker will disclose compensation received from third parties. Broker will recommend third-party services to a buyer. If broker receives a fee or compensation from the referral, broker will let others know in writing. Well, we can't, right? We can't receive additional compensation. Is it that what this section set up here? Broker will not receive additional compensation from any source that exceeds the amount specified in this agreement. So we can't take additional compensation. I guess maybe that exceeds that amount. So maybe if for whatever reason you're not exceeding that amount yet, you could. All right, it's almost done here. Buyer must consent. Oh, by the way, in Arkansas, we have a form for this. If, used to back in the day, home warranty companies would pay agents like $50 to $100 if they sold a home warranty to someone. And it was a racket. And for years, agents did not have to disclose that money. But in Arkansas, now we have a form that says it's a multi-party compensation. If you get paid by more than one person in a transaction, you have to disclose to the buyer and seller that you're getting additional payment. So if I have a contractor company, for example, and the buyer is hiring my contractor company to go flip the property, and I'm making money from the deal outside of it, it's best practice to go ahead and let everyone know, like, hey, I'm also going to be making money on this side of the deal too. There's a technicality there, whether you have to or not, because the home hasn't closed yet, but I would say when in doubt, disclose. Buyer must consent to dual or designated agency. Dual agency is prohibited in some states. There's a note there. So the potential for dual agency arises if the buyer becomes interested in purchasing a property by the listing broker. Broker may represent a buyer and seller in the same transaction only if both parties consent in writing. That's fairly normal. If buyer wants to put an offer on a property listed by the broker, does not consent to dual agency or designated agency where a different agent from the same brokerage is assigned, buyer will be released from the agreement for that particular transaction. I mean, they could just cancel it anyway, right? So there's your signatures. So it's okay. I mean, I think there's some glaring problems with the agreement. I think there's some problems that a law professor probably should have known going in. I feel like they should have consulted with a lot of real estate agents before drafting the document. But it's an interesting attempt. I think our contracts in Arkansas are better. They define the roles better. There's also nothing in here that says that the not quality is not the word, that the condition of the property, that the real estate agent makes no warranties or representations about the condition of the property or conveyance of mineral rights or, crime rates or pedophiles or whatever, mold. I'm not a mold inspector, but there's nothing in here that says I should be released from that kind of liability, that they should rely on an inspector or professional. So I would not, if you're thinking about using this agreement and you're a real estate agent, I would strongly consider that you not, because I just think you're going to get sued over and over. And without it being mutually beneficial, without it protecting, the agent in some just very glaringly obvious things, then I don't think anybody's going to use it. So yeah, maybe she could shred the California agreement, but her agreement, I mean, it doesn't even, the agent that would use this would be someone that is so bad at being an agent that they put the buyer at risk just from serving them because they don't know what they're doing. And that's a bigger concern to me, I think, than the actual document itself.
And the document was intended to be for the protection of the buyer by this professor?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So there, maybe she'll chime in. I mean, I'd love to have an actual conversation with her. She seems willing to talk about it. So I'd love to go through those parts, but who knows? Maybe she'll jump in the comments.
I really think that this is absolutely one of the conversations that we're having in our office, but I don't think many other offices are, as to how can we improve these forms and how can we improve these interactions with buyers to protect the consumer and role play a lot of this stuff out. So that because everybody is running by the seat of their pants right now.
Yeah. I mean, they've put some stuff in place in our contracts in Arkansas that I'm like, you guys need to immediately remove that because it is protecting the agent. It's holding on to the way things used to happen. It's not moving. It's not progressing anyone forward. It's not protecting the clients forward. And so I think there's some major issues with probably most state documents. I actually liked our documents before we changed. I don't think they needed to do anything. I think by adding some language to it, they really hurt the buyer and seller and also the agent. I think they opened them up to all kinds of future lawsuits. So,
and none of this was written by practitioners. This was all jamming in for August 17th and overwritten and rewritten by attorneys.
Yeah, I think we're up to 2 revisions since the 17th now. So that's just since the 17th. I'm sure there's going to be more. I'm making form change request, but we'll see what happens. It's really difficult to also train my new agents because I'm like, well, this is the form we're using today. Be prepared that it changes and all these numbers. I used to memorize each segment of the contract, so I know that the inspection's in section 16, if they mark 16A, 16B. That way I can help, if I'm on the phone, I can help, with my agents. I can just basically shut my eyes and read the contract. And now all the numbers are out of whack. So now instead of, 36 sections, I think there's 38 or 39. And so it's just like, man, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. I'm not even going to try to rememorize until it's all kind of settled. All right, well, let's talk about some economic news. We're actually going to go through this next part fairly quickly, but it's all fairly easy to understand as well. It's not like this is going to surprise you guys. I did want to show my thumbnail because I'm proud of it. Housing on Edge. It's got a really cool picture of a moderate home on the edge of a cliff with a buyer looking back at the home. And this comes from the idea that it seems like the whole economy and housing is on edge and people want to jump into the market, but they don't really know if they should or not. So buying a starter home is now cheaper than it was a year ago. That's wonderful news. Home buyers need to earn $77,000 to afford the typical American starter home. I think last year was 80. I think we did that. Yeah, there's the little spike there. So it's up to 76,995. It went down negative 0.4% from the previous high. Now keep in mind that this chart at the bottom are the percent increases every year. And then so you see some decreases. Oh, look at that. Huh. The income that home buyers needed to earn in years 2000 and let's see, where are we? 2020, 2000. Yeah. right at 2019, 20 through the pandy was at an all-time low. Like it went down, down, down. But if you look at the actual chart, the actual income kind of stagnated during that time. It's like a real slow, wide turning circle. And then just ramped up recently, 2022, 23, 24. It's at an all-time high. So affordability is still an issue, though it went down 0.4%. That kind of explains why some people like the news, but they're still on edge. They don't want to jump into the market yet because maybe they're thinking that it's going to change further. Starter homes are much less affordable than they were before the pandy. The typical household earns an estimated $83,853 per year, which is 8.9% more than they need to afford the typical median price starter home. That's an improvement from last August, but it's a setback from before the pandy, August 2019. So this is before the pandy. The household earned 57.1% more than they needed to afford the median price starter home. Think about this. In 2012, that's the other number they have. They earned 113% more, twice as much that they needed. Now, in 2012, what was going on? People were just returning to the market in 2011 and 2012 from the huge onslaught that the market received during the huge crash, I guess you could say, of 2008, 9, and 10. That was all now starting to return. We had a huge glut of inventory. There were foreclosures galore. Short sales, all kinds of stuff was happening in that time period. And people were making over twice as much as they needed to purchase a home. In August of 2019, they were making 57% more than they needed to afford a home. That's before the pandy. So then the pandy happened. It was still pretty low throughout the pandemic. We saw that on this chart here. It was low and continued to go down, but that was because the rate drop, as we all know. We still had an issue with inventory during that time period. And then boom, now we're at a situation where we have higher rates. People are not making more money. They're making less money. Everything is more expensive. And so it has a higher cost of living for everyone. And when those powers combine, and the high home prices, when those powers combined, you see that we're at an all-time high of unaffordability for starter homes. So even though the down is good news, it's not good enough news to bring everyone back. But this article by Inman says buyers are coming back. Mortgage demand shoots up. Home tours hit highest level since May. So chime in the comments. Are you guys seeing people coming back to the market? Are you seeing an increase in the open house activity? Are you seeing increases from buyers who want to go see properties? News about last week's interest rate cut is starting to bring home buyers back. Home buyers locked in nearly 70% more mortgages than they did a month earlier. Let's see. That's according to the mortgage rate lock from Optimal Blue. Let's see. Still, there are other indicators that demand is improving. Mortgage purchase applications are up more than 10% month over month. That's really great. Let's see. News at the Fed's historic interest rate cut is the main factor bringing home buyers off the sidelines. Mortgage rates and housing costs have been declining meaningfully for the last several weeks. Improving affordability, also a main factor. The median monthly housing payment is down 4.4%. All right, go to Redfin. It's got the leading indicators there, so you guys can kind of take a look at that. But then we have this news. Mortgage rates are unlikely to fall much further, even with the Fed's upcoming rate cuts. Why? Every time somebody hears a rate cut, I mean, you see it all over. You see two people. There's two people that you see on Facebook. Okay. So anytime there's a federal rate cut, or anytime there's a cut by the Fed, you see two people on Facebook. The Fed's cutting rates and it doesn't make a difference for your mortgage. And the Fed's cutting rates. Mortgage rates are dropping. Those are the two main people that you see on Facebook. And I can tell you they're both wrong. But both of those takes are incorrect. It does make a difference, but it doesn't make a direct difference. It's an indirect impact on how much you would pay for your mortgage. And if you guys want to know more about this, just Google the Fed Ray Ellen on YouTube. And I've got a whole explainer video that talks about the job of the Fed and how it works. And it's like 5 minutes, a little good education for you. So we won't go into that today. But it's
sort of like a rising and lowering tide, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And the rate cut that we got, or that the Fed made, was only a quarter of a point, which I think was baked into the current interest rate, but we got 0.5%, so we should see a little bit more. But I still think there's some concern by the consumers, and I don't see much more happening.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of this is already priced in. So because he's so open about the future probably having additional rate cuts, I think all that's going to be priced into the market. So I think that's the primary reason why you're not going to see a huge difference. But this article goes into the detail on that on Redfin. But if you're telling your clients, well, wait a couple more months because the Fed's going to cut rates and mortgage rates will go down again, probably not. We're probably going to be stagnant or maybe just a little bit lower than where we are from now to the end of the year, I think. Brian Hershey said, I am not Googling that. Do it yourself. So I did it. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for tuning in again. Brian, I always find Brian Hershey in the comments of weird Instagram videos. So red hot refinance demand retreats after a tiny bump in a higher mortgage rate. The average contract interest rate for 30-year fixed mortgage with conforming loan balance increased to 6.13%. Ooh, huge. Applications for mortgage to purchase rose 1% from the week and were 9% higher than the same week a year ago. So that's really good comparison year over year. I like that, but we're also getting close to the time last year. I think that it was like 8%. So that year over year differentiation should increase. But what we are seeing is that 2.5% of U.S. homes changed hands this year. It's the lowest rate in decades. So people are staying put. There's also more real estate agents in the world than ever before. So you do the math. It's decades low number of homes sold and changed hands and decades high number of agents. So like I said, call your local realtor, check in on them. How are they doing? That's according to a Redfin analysis, housing turnover comparison, comparing the first 8 months of 2024 across the different metro areas, home neighborhoods, and types. They use turnover as a measure of housing availability. It indicates how often homes are sold in a given area. Here's another chart. Homes being listed for sale at the lowest rate since 2012. I think we talked about that a little bit last week. So just 32 out of every 1,000 homes were listed for sale in the first 8 months of 2024. This rate is down 30% from before the pandy. 46 listings of 1,000 homes is what it was. And down 29% from the pandy-driven buying spree, 45 listings per 1,000 homes. So we have fewer listings now than we did at the height of the pandy. But one of the other booms that we saw in the market were, and everyone on Clubhouse remembers this, multifamily. There wasn't a Clubhouse room that you can go into a couple of years ago without hearing that somebody was putting together a syndicate for a big multifamily project, and they wanted you to invest $50,000 to $100,000 and and be a part of this syndicate building the new multifamily properties. 54% of U.S. apartments that were completed in the first quarter were rented within 3 months. That's up from 47% a quarter earlier. Newly built studio apartments rented out faster than other bedroom types. 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom apartments rented out slower as completions climbed by more than 20%. So the newly built apartments are starting to fill up faster, but at a slower pace than last year. Wait, okay, hang on. Let's read this again. Newly built apartments are starting to fill up faster, but at a slower pace than last year. So it's better than it was, but not as good as it has been. Other those better than it was, but not as good as it has been. Here's the chart from Redfin showing the ups and downs of the market and how, I mean, this was the heyday as we were seeing the new apartments built filling up slower than a year ago now. But man, in 2020 is kind of when it really started. And then it just, boom, it shot up 74%. They were rented within 3 months of completion. And that's when everyone was like, oh my gosh, we got to build all this stuff. Well, now that the new stuff has been built, they have saturated the market with inventory. So naturally, that's going to return to a normal pace to where now 54% of new apartment buildings are filling up within 3 months of completion. There's the bedroom over bedroom comparison. This is really good data if you have a multifamily investor and maybe they're looking at some different types of apartments and availability. It'll be interesting to maybe convert some of those to studio apartments and see how they do. And then the next to last, asking rents for new apartments dropped to 6%, lowest level. Kind of goes along with the article we just talked about. Of course, it would be dropping as there's more and more availability and supply. So that would be, new apartment completions hit the highest level in 12 years. So I guess all that stuff that was happening on Clubhouse was real. I guess all those jacks were good, man. They were like, no, we're actually building it. All right. In the last article, I am in Arkansas, and here's the world of Walmart. So this is a big deal. Walmart's new 8,000 square foot building marks a big step forward for 3D printing. Check this out. 3D printing for home construction is still fairly new technology. Not necessarily the cheapest. That said, in some commercial sectors are looking at technology with fresh eyes and a potential go-to for future retail projects. In a recent CNBC interview, shed some light on the partnership between Alquest 3D and American retail giant Walmart to create one of the largest 3D printed commercial structures in history. This is really cool. Where's the... it's not letting me play the video because I have a screen share on. Okay. Well, that article is over on Now Bam. So you could go take a look at that. Or maybe the video is just not working. But an article in 3dprint.com provides a backstory of Walmart's decision to hire Alquest. They're from Athens, Tennessee. Let's see. It gives some of the background, challenges and opportunities. I want pictures. Lessons in future. I guess this is the best picture that we have. It's right up here at the top, which is really cool. So 3D print, the 3D printed buildings have that layered look and the real rough concrete texture. So I'm anxious to see what happens. I want to know how it goes. I want to go into the first one, the first 3D printed Walmart. That's a big deal here. You're like, I don't care. It's Walmart. No, it's big. The retail giant. I'm sorry. I missed a couple of, I can't publish that, Matt. That's a good comment. I'm not going to publish that in this environment.
It's like cue the banjo music, right?
Oh,
the 3D printed Walmart is here.
I mean, actually it would need to be like electric banjo, right? It would need to be like something really progressive. Yeah. It'd have to be something super progressive, but also throwback to who we are. For those of you who don't know, Bentonville, Arkansas is the home of Walmart, and they actually have the original 5 and Dime store where Sam Walton got his start, and they have his old pickup truck parked inside of it. So you can go and take a tour and see the history. It's pretty cool. And he always opened in the small towns. He would go to the small towns that didn't have anything, and he would open up there, and then the big towns would beg him to come into the big town, and that's how he did it. That's how he made it in. So, all right. Well, thank everybody for joining us this week. I appreciate the banter and the back and forth, and thanks for all the comments on YouTube. And I will see you guys next. Let's see, is it next week? Yeah, I do have an away coming up, so it's going to be the week of October 21st, 2nd, 3rd, something like that. I won't be on, but I'll be here next week. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.